Hello again YouTube, Mad Dog here, welcome back to my channel. This video is a bit of a tag response video. I've been tagged by my good mate Bill over at X-Ray Zulu, and it's a 3 knife tag, and that tag is to include 3 categories, and they are the most useful knife you have, the most unusual knife you have, and your favourite knife. That's a hard one, that really is a hard one. So I've gone through my collection of knives, tools, machetes. I'm sort of including that. You'll see where I'm going with this in a moment. And I've thrown a few items on the bench, so stay with me and I'll show you my picks. Okay, so over here on the bench I've got a few different various items to go at, and I'm going to start with the most useful, because for me, out of the 3 categories, this is the most controversial, you might say. The most useful knife, in my opinion, this is all just my opinion, based on my experiences, the most useful knife you can have is the one that is on you at the time of it being needed. Obviously, it's common sense. So that being said, I'm applying this to an EDC UK everyday carry scenario. So for me, without a shadow of a doubt, it's got to be the Swiss Army knife. As boring as this sounds, I can make traps, you know, whether that be snare based, deadfall traps, cut cordage, prepare feather sticks. What do you really need a knife in a survival situation for? You know, I can make shelter, cut cordage, like I say, notches, preparing game. Most tasks with a small blade you can do in a bad situation. I'm not talking bushcraft, because that's a different, for me that's a different genre. The most useful knife. Now, whilst it might only be a small blade, there are 2 of them. One that you could use as purely your meat game preparing blade, one as your general purpose blade. The other obvious tool on here, which I'm a big advocate of, is the saw. I think that is brilliant and one of the most underrated items on the Swiss Army knife that anybody can carry. A saw can really save you a lot of hard work, and the one on the Swiss Army knife is very effective for its size. So for me, the most useful knife is, what context is it taken in? If you're in the jungle, then you're going to need something like a parang, or you know, something that's, excuse the pun, will cut it. You know, it's horses for courses. So for me to answer that one simplistically isn't going to happen, because the most useful knife is dependent on what application you need a knife for. You know, if you're going to batten wood, you need a big full tang, solid tank of a thing. If you're going to do some intricate wood carving to make a spoon, then you need a small, fine edged, fine bladed carving knife. You know, it's horses for courses. So for me, as an all-rounder, I'm going to say the Swiss Army knife, as boring as it is, for the most useful knife. I know that's boring, but this is based on truthful experience and just my opinion. So the next category is, now this is where it gets a little bit off path, you might say, the most unusual knife that you have. Okay, so rather than an unusual knife, I'm going to give you an unusual knife or blade coupled with an unusual story. So stay with me and I'll show you that one. Okay, so for my most unusual knife, isn't actually about the knife per se, it's about the story that goes along with it. So I'll just show you this to start with, if I can, in here. It's limited room in the shed. So this really doesn't qualify as being a knife as such. As you can see, it's like a small sword with a leather scabbard there. And just take this out. Okay, put that to one side. So there's the blade. Okay, give you a quick look around it, and then I'll give you the story as to why this is unusual, or the story behind it. Crikey me, it's warm in here. Do excuse me sweating. it's still warm over here in the UK. So this sword and the story behind it. This sword is basically a tourist piece from Spain, and it was made possibly in the 50s, but was brought back over in the UK in the mid to late 60s. And the reason being, this is my dad's sword. So when my dad was a young man, himself and two other friends, they decided to do a European driving tour, a tour of Europe. And at the end of that tour, they were going to go down to the northern peninsula of Africa, return round and go back. Now during that tour, they went through European countries, down through Spain, etc., down to the north tip of Africa, where I believe there was some sort of civil unrest or some reason why they couldn't cross the border into northern Africa. So they were turned round and ultimately had to head on home earlier than expected. Now the car that they were driving in them days was a Rapier, a Sunbeam Rapier convertible. So there was 3 of them, usually taking it in shifts to drive. So being turned round at Africa, they were sent back home. So my dad was at the wheel, and he'd been driving for more hours than he should have been. And there was in Spain when the incident happened. And basically, long story short, my dad's 2 friends in the back, they'd already fallen asleep during the journey, and my dad had nodded off at the wheel. This is in a convertible car. This is in Spain as well. The car careered off and crashed into a boulder. And all 3 occupants were ejected out of the car. Luckily in those days you didn't have to wear seat belts. Luckily it was a convertible car, because the car then careered past the boulder down a substantial cliff. I wished I'd got the photographic evidence to show you guys and lasses, because my dad still is in possession of those photographs of the wreckage and everything that was left. One of the items that was thrown clear of that wreckage was this trophy sword. It's a tourist piece made in Spain that my dad had brought whilst visiting Spain. It's actually a replica of a sword that they used to use in the bullfighting arenas to actually, finish the job when it came to bullfighting in them days, So it's a replica of a bullfighter's killing sword, basically, or dagger, large dagger, whatever you want to call it. So that would probably be my most unusual knife or blade. Not necessarily for the blade, but the story behind it. All 3 of the chaps survived, obviously. My dad then went on to have me, so the wreckage of the car was recovered, and off that wreckage came this. And this is the Rapier signia, symbol, badge, whatever you want to call it, off that car. Sunbeam Rapier. And obviously a rapier is a fast fencing type of combat sword. That's what rapier means in that context. I think it also means rapier is a warm wind, something like that. Or is that a Scirocco? Might be getting mixed up there. So anyway, so that, along with my tourist piece Spanish sword, is probably my most unusual items when it comes to knives, but because of the story behind it, not the actual blade or the item itself. So I'm going to leave it at that. Hope you find that unusual enough, but it's true, it's absolutely true. All 3 occupants were thrown out of the car during that crash, and all 3 of them survived. So seatbelts, eh? Had they have worn them, I wouldn't be here today. So on to the next topic, which is very hard for me, which is my favourite knife. Let's have a look at that. Okay, so the last section of this tag video is favourite knives. This has been massively hard for me because, like all of us, bushcrafters, outdoors people, usually we accrue a lot of knives, different tools for different purposes and different reasons. So I've narrowed it down simplistically just to these few, just to make it easy on myself, basically, if that makes sense. So first and foremost, my favourite knife is this one, and the reason being, I've never actually used it in anger, but the reason being is it's a knife that my good lady Mrs. Mad Dog has brought me, and it's a very recent knife. but it's the first ever Damascus steel knife that I've ever owned. Beautiful thing, lovely craftsmanship, lovely bone insert there, like a packwood handle there. You know, it's like a rat tail riveted tang type of hilt there with Damascus steel back plate. I love it. I really love it, and it's not because of what it can do or what I could do with it or any of that. It's a keepsake, it's a collector's item, lovely leather sheath, and the fact that my good lady brought this for me as something different to own in my collection, because she knows me very well, and if I was to spend the same sort of money that this cost on a knife, I'd be buying another Mora, you know, and adding the same old, because they are useful, they're very good at what they do, but they are, I'm not being rude to Mora because I'm a massive fan of them, they are productionised, they're very soulless, they're not one-off individuals, whereas this is handcrafted, and I love it, I absolutely love it. So that is my favourite knife number one. I guess you could say that's like my, you know, my heirloom piece. So secondly would have to be this, for different reasons. This is the military British Army. It's actually called a utility tool. If you look up the NATO number for this, I think it's called the utility tool, if memory serves me right. And this one was issued in 1996. I don't know if this will pick up on here. It's about worn out now, the numbers here. I'm not going to go into all the details, but for me it holds a lot of fond memories, a lot of bad memories, and it is a beast of a thing even today, you know, compared to all the more expensive knives. It's full tang, it's solid, you can abuse the hell out of this knife, do excuse me, and you know, you can dig with it, you can cook on it, you can do things with this that you really shouldn't do with any knife, because it's classed as a utility tool, not a knife. I'm sure, if memory serves me right, that the NATO stock number classifies this as a utility tool, not a knife. Since then it's become known as the British survival knife, or the British Army survival knife. Whatever, you know, it is what it is. It is a tool. It's utilitarian. It's the master of all. It's the jack of all trades, master of none, should I say. You know, it's not good at any one job, but it will do a little bit of everything, if that makes sense. For any of you guys and lasses that are new to these, they do actually come dull originally when you get issued them, and you have to spend a long time putting your own edge on. I won't go into all that. Anyway, so for different reasons, that would be my second favourite knife, and in my young man days would be one of my most used knives. These days, just a keepsake, a piece of memorabilia, you might say. So that would probably be my number two. So thereon, number three. I really like this knife. It's not a massively expensive piece of kit, but I appreciate its qualities for what it can do, what it offers in its own entirety, and that is the Real Steel Bushcraft 2. This is the second edition of the Real Steel Bushcraft 2. Comes in like a Kydex sheath, which, you know, it's not everybody's taste. It has the G10 scales and liners. Very nicely made. You know, and it's got the D2 steel, tool steel, so it's very hard, long-lived steel, full tang, nice jimping. It's not massive, but it isn't small. It's Mora sized, but is more substantial than a Mora. It will take battening or abuse should you need to do it. I'm not a big advocate of battening. I believe that a tool should be used within its parameters. If it's capable of being battened, then batten it. If it's a folding knife or a moulded, handled knife, then don't batten it, because it's going to break. You know, common sense. That's my opinion. I really like this knife. I love the D2 steel. It's absolutely, I've only used it a few times, this particular one. I've had one before. It's razor sharp out of the box, full Scandi grind, which I love, as you all know. D2 steel, nicely fit and finished, very nice. So that will be choice number 3 basically for me, for my favourite knife. And it isn't 500 quid, you know, this thing, I can't remember how much I paid, £50, maybe 55. You know, it's not Ray Mears knife, bush law type of money, but that sort of profile, that type of style. Yeah, I recommend it. I really recommend that. So that's the real steel too. So before I close, favourite knives. Crikey me, I'm hot in here, I'm sweating. Do excuse me. So I can't close without mentioning this, which is a recent acquisition, which is this, which is the Jack Russell knife, hand forged knife from Redneck Renegade, as part of his giveaway box that he sent to me. It's a full tang, traditional pioneer woodsman type of knife, based on the original butcher, you know, like in the 1800s, butcher's type of knife. Look at that, hand forged. It is sharp. It's razor sharp. You know, it's fantastic. I love it. It's full of character. It reeks of soul. You know, I can't explain what I mean on the video. You know, I used to own a 1964 S-Type Jaguar, 3.8 Jaguar, and I cannot explain to you guys and lasses what it means when you open the door and you smell the burr walnut dash and the leather, the smell, the soul and the character. You cannot buy that on a new knife or a modern plastic equivalent, and that's what this knife has got, that in spades. It just oozes character and soul. So I know I'm waxing lyrical, but it is the truth. Lovely leather sheath with a traditional dangler belt loop. Love it. Really love that knife. So it's up there in my favourites, and I do have a lot of knives. And along with that, obviously, the multi-tool that Redneck also sent me. I'm not going to go into all that. That's got massive emotional attachment for me for different reasons. So I'm going to call it quits there, because I've rambled on yet again, way too long as usual. As you'll probably know, I'm still wearing this Gentleman's Hardwares Outdoors multi-tool Swiss Army knife equivalent. I've been carrying this now for 7 months and using it as my AEDC. It's performed perfectly. I do use it. I use it quite a lot at work and at home. However, I'm sorely missing my SAK, my Swiss Army knife, purely because this feels, it's rounder, it feels nicer, it's more ambidextrous. This is a heavier lump, it's more square, good quality, but I can't wait to do my year, as I promised I would, and put this one back on. For no other reason than this, it just doesn't feel as nice. Anyway, I digress. That's my response video to X-Ray Zulu. I've got to choose 3 more victims. So if you're still with me, thank you very much. My 3 victims are... Who am I going to choose? Right. Eagle Ridge Survival. Over there in Ireland. If you're watching this, brother, please do your 3 versions of this video, and which is most unusual knife, most useful knife, and favourite knife. They're the categories. Will Patriot, my new brother from another mother over in the USA, over the pond there, please do the same if you want to. You know, that's up to you. I'm nominating you. And last but not least, a UK veteran, which is Prepared Vet. Fantastic fella. I know he never shows his face and all that, but you know, we're all allowed our privacy, but knows his stuff, great content, great fella. I respect him a lot. So Prepared Vet, I've got some notes down here, do excuse me. So yes, you're my 3rd tag victim. So hope you find this Interesting if not useful. Just my opinions, guys and lasses. Take it for what it is. Hope this answers your questions, X-Ray Zulu. Thank you for tagging me in, mate. You're a good mate. We'll speak soon offline. Take care. Anyway, to the rest of my viewers, have a great weekend. See you all soon, which won't be long. I'm getting the hell out of here for a cool, some water and a chill. See you all soon. Mad Dog signing off. Yeah!